1, 2, 3. Check, check. 1, 2. Josh has a terrible tattoo on his forearm.
Hey, it's charitable.
It's a charitable tattoo.
Yeah, it is a charitable tattoo. It's for a good cause. I mean, I'm not doing anything, but I literally just a walking billboard. But, you know, I don't have any money to donate, so what are we going to do? Alright, start.
And that's how easy it is to buy real estate on Josh's body. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to episode 21 of the Rondo. I'm getting better at keeping track, Josh, of these numbers now. Before I had to check really quickly before the episode started. Now it's in my head, forever imprinted as a countdown to infinity. I want to start today's episode. I actually was in Brisbane for a little bit at the X-Football pop-up. Those of you that would have watched the penalty shootout, there's going to be a vlog. There's heaps of content coming out of that on the Rondo. We debuted the Rondo's logo, which was done by my man Kyle in Florida, which shows the interconnectedness of our world.
That's bonkers, to be honest.
Through Instagram DMs. So super lit. Gave him a bunch of park stuff. Yeah, he was killer. You should go check his stuff out. But I want to start today's episode with something that was brought up with me, and it prompted me to cast back in time into our history, Josh.
Oh no.
I was asked about our origin story the other day. And how we became friends and how we, how this happened, all that kind of stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong. My first memory of our friendship was when I had that Gary Neville card in my wallet. Do you remember that?
Yes,
when
I
we were in
do.
school
Yeah.
And we were like 12. And I don't know why I just pulled it out of my wallet. And you were like, that's Gary Neville.
Yep.
And I think a beautiful friendship was born from that moment.
So we have Gary Neville to thank.
Yeah, shout out Gary.
Unbelievable.
But it's like, I think I was talking to Paul from PFC, who, by the way, I bought this kit from, this Cameroon World Cup tribute kit, which if I turn around real quick, it seems a bit weird, but it has Roger Miller's celebration on the back.
And wave your flag.
Yeah. So Josh is in the studio after this.
I'm just remembering all those 2010 World Cup ads.
Banger. But that was really how it began for us. And I think it's important to touch on that. And when we finished school, I remember we had nothing to do. So then we recorded what was a Scored Goals podcast. And we did a bunch of eps.
Yeah, literally with a set of headphones plugged into a phone. It was a little bit lower tech in those days.
Times have changed and now the come up is real. But yeah, I just remember bonding over football in the purest sense of the word, right? Because I think at that point in time, the A-League was pretty fresh. I remember going to the A-League with you in the first, was it the first couple of years that it was
it would have been the second season or third season when we were in year 7. So it was pretty early days.
Yeah, I remember going to Victory Roar with you.
Mm-hmm.
And the stadium was pretty empty.
Yeah, look, Etihad was always too big.
Yeah, but they had Tommy Orr, Bruce Jitte, Zulo, Crew, all them. It was, yeah. And anyway, we were talking about that yesterday. And it just reminded me of that was really how we connected.
I mean, Ryan doesn't watch the A-League anymore, but like most people, you've abandoned it.
Look, but here's the thing, right? I can be bought for the right price. I will support your team.
If they hire you as an influencer.
I'm just saying, I know if you need someone to support your team, I'm super down. But yeah, I don't really watch it anymore. I'm a bit of a Euro snob, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'll own
disappointing.
that. I'll own that. But that was the conversation, which was I think we work as a duo because I think I was about to say something that you're super into, you have knowledge, the technical knowledge about the game, which I think I've always appreciated about you when we were growing up. I think the tactics and then also, going beyond just the European football. You're in the thick of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm wearing an MPL jersey right 100%. Now. This is a Melbourne Knights kit.
And I think for me, I love what football did for me as an immigrant. You know, like I think you remember like growing up in school when, you know, like getting bullied and all that kind of stuff. Like football was that like entry point into something different. Like you were one of my oldest friends. So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up as a bit of an origin story because I think that's like, yeah.
And football did a lot for me when I emigrated to Doncaster. You know?
From Warrandyte.
Yeah.
From the sticks.
Yeah, from the skips to the, let's say there was a lot of Asians versus Wogs games going on at lunchtime.
Yeah. It
was a different world, right?
It was a different, 100%. But I think it's like...
The only football they knew in Warrandyte was footy.
Yeah, and I remember you invited me to your house in Warrandyte, and you were like, "How did you kick the ball like that?" And then I had never been asked that before, and also I never thought about how to translate that for someone. So, so yeah.
See, Ryan had the natural talent. You know, I had to use my brain because I didn't.
I always said that Josh would make a good coach. I've always said that about you.
Maybe one day.
Maybe one day.
One day I'll come back and coach the Eagles. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been self-indulgence. Shall we talk about the Champions League?
Yeah. But moving on to the Champions League, which I'm not gonna lie to you, I slept through most of it. I watched the highlights though. I did watch the highlights. Obviously, a few.
Typical
games.
Euro snob. Just doesn't watch the highlights. Looks at the FIFA ratings. FOTMOB.
No.
Goals, assists.
Look. I've been a busy man, all right? Sometimes sleep has to come before football.
7 a.m. kickoffs. It's not that brutal.
See, now you walked right into my trap. Because did you or did you not, before the cameras went on, say, 7 a.m. is still a bit too early for me?
Yeah, well, I work nights though.
All right.
I work nights.
Whatever, bro. Where do you want to start off? Obviously, we had games this morning.
I want to start with PSG 1, Real Madrid 0.
So Mbappe's dress rehearsal for Real Madrid did it go according to plan?
It's kind of weird. I mean, it's an absurd way to frame it. I think Florentino Perez wrote that introduction for you because, I mean, Madrid should be so lucky that Mbappe would deign them with his presence in the team.
Paid off.
I mean, it kind of preserves Madrid's status as a super club if he moves there on a free, because you know, God knows they wouldn't have the money to sign him with a transfer fee, and PSG wouldn't accept. I honestly think the bid that they made before the season started was simply to show Mbappe how much they wanted him. Yeah, I think if PSG had called their bluff and accepted, they might have withdrawn it. Yeah, because I don't think Madrid can afford that. No one of the clubs in Spain can. There's strict salary cap and spending. Like controls now in that league, and it's also based on like your level of debt and so forth. Yeah, which Barcelona have run up against, as we know. So, and obviously the clubs without the sugar daddy owners have been more impacted by the COVID crisis than the likes of Manchester City and PSG, who are insulated against it by their owners' millions. So, Kylian Mbappe certainly put on a show in that last couple of minutes. Throughout the 90, it was a pretty underwhelming game. I couldn't believe just how negative Madrid were, just how defensively they approached that tie. You know, they had a few players out. Karim Benzema started even though he clearly wasn't fit. But really, it was just how deep they were sitting. You know, I think they were terrified of Mbappe's pace. And therefore, they were basically standing on the edge of their own box, and they rarely even ventured into PSG's half for most of the tie. They managed to keep them out for most of it. They defended pretty well, but this didn't look like two super clubs playing in some titanic Champions League battle. This looked like, you know, a typical Ligue 1 match where PSG is facing 10 players behind the ball. Yeah. And I was quite astonished by that approach. I didn't think they would be quite that negative. Yeah. And it took a moment of inspiration after Messi missed the penalty from Mbappe to break the game open in the last minute.
So I want to talk about PSG because now it's obviously, you know, out there that Poch is having a hard time, you know, behind the scenes stuff going on. How much does that play into their own planning for the future if Mbappe leaves? You know, where does I mean, you can call it a franchise, right? They're a super club. If they win the Champions League, you know, do they stick with Poch? What does the future look like?
Yeah, it's interesting. It doesn't seem like any of the coaches that have come through there have particularly enjoyed the experience. Coaches tend to like players who do what they tell them to do.
Yeah.
I think you see a bias in that towards the kinds of players who get more minutes across European football. You know, Manchester United being an example, Scott McTominay is going to play ahead of someone like Donny van de Beek because Scott McTominay is going to say, yes, boss, and do exactly what he's told.
Yep.
So the kind of free spirits, shall we say, like Neymar, are not favourites of coaches who want to instill their philosophy and their imprint on the team, particularly not of coaches who want to play disciplined pressing systems, whether it's Tuchel, who likes to press very high, or Poch, who likes a sort of, I guess, a mid-block thing, but it's quite organised and drilled. To have to essentially defend with 7 players and attack with 3 doesn't fit with his philosophy of defending from the front whatsoever. So I always thought he was going to have a hard time going there because the work ethic of the front 3 is not there, and also the I guess physical capacity of those players. I mean, Neymar's always getting injured. Messi, as we know, is the tail end of his career and doesn't really run much, if at all.
And misses penalties.
You know, but he still can impact a game, and he was his link-up play with Mbappe in this one was, and with Verratti as well, who I thought was exceptional in this fixture, the player of the match.
You love a bit of Verratti.
I do. He's always got one stupid tackle in him where he randomly studs somebody for no reason and gets a suspension. And he often gets injured at the business end of the season. I think sometimes smaller players pick up more injuries because they're just getting kicked every week. But in terms of his passing ability, those short, sharp balls kind of punch through the lines to progress through teams. In terms of his ability to keep the ball under pressure and his dribbling, I think he's top tier central midfielder, top 3 in the world. And you know, I think he's quite underrated because he's a bit out of sight, out of mind playing in France. Which and he's not one of the star names. So you know, you see the highlights on the weekend as Mbappe scored a hat trick, and you know, you don't notice that Verratti in the lead up play 20 seconds before the goal was key to it all. So I thought he was really good in this game. But it was interesting to see that Neymar was benched and. Arguably, that gave PSG a little more balance in the side. They were playing a kind of diamond. Di Maria was playing kind of wide right and up front, I guess. Messi is the sort of 10 or false 9, depending on how you want to frame it. And they had Paredes, Verratti, and basically they've always got one jobbing central midfielder who just basically stays back and guards against the counter attack. So you know, it doesn't even matter who that person is because I can't remember off the top of my head who started. But you know, just literally a body to stand in the way once they lose the ball and do some running, I guess, that the others don't. And it gave them a little bit more balance in this fixture, but it's tough to judge whether Poch has found a game-winning formula against the very best sides, just because Madrid didn't risk much. So they didn't have that much to guard against on the defensive end.
And so where does this game hang in the balance in the second leg, heading back to the Bernabeu? Obviously, the away goal rule is no longer a factor.
I think UEFA might have messed up there. I don't know. It's too early to tell, but Madrid's approach in that game suggested that we are heading back to the bad old days of teams setting up shop away from home and hoping to overturn the deficit in the home leg. Or vice versa.
So on the pitch, though, do you reckon that many changes will have to be made in that second game for Real Madrid to turn it around?
Yeah, they've got to get Benzema fit, first and foremost. If that involves resting him for some La Liga fixtures or playing him reduced minutes in the lead up to that game, he's absolutely key. And they don't have a backup striker. You know, Luka Jovic has been a massive flop. Gareth Bale is the other option, and he played a few minutes off the bench. I'm just astonished that he's still kicking around. Doesn't he have golf to play?
Just a few more paychecks, mate, and he'll be out of there.
It's a sad end to his career. I mean, he's had a magnificent one. He's won 4 Champions Leagues. He always seemed to score in the finals. So big contribution.
He deserves to play golf.
Yeah, I guess he's earned it, but certainly he's resented in Madrid for sitting on that fat paycheck and refusing to move.
Fair enough.
Eden Hazard has been a huge disappointment.
Yeah.
He's had injury problems as well.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, I think they just need to have Benzema fit to take a little bit more of a positive approach to where they're putting their back line essentially and how high the midfield presses out of possession. I just don't think it served them well sitting on the edge of their own box for 90 minutes. But I'm not sure they're going to win this match regardless because Casemiro is suspended.
Yep.
And he's...
Big part.
Yeah, best defensive midfielder in the world over the last 10 years, I would say, is Casemiro. And I guess they've got some options to bring in that position, but none of them are quite at Casemiro's level.
Of course.
Maybe Valverde will...
Hey, I love me a bit of Fede Valverde.
Yeah, he's good. He's a very kind of vertical player, which is maybe what Madrid need. He's a bit more urgent in trying to get the ball forward.
Yeah.
But I just don't think he has quite the positional intelligence that Casemiro has.
Yeah.
And the other question is it right back? Because I thought Carvajal was very poor.
Yeah.
But then after they subbed him off, Lucas Vazquez was statuesque for the goal. So I don't know what the answer is there. It shows that Hakimi, who's now playing for PSG, never should have let him go on loan in the first place. He should have been in Madrid's first team years ago.
Yeah.
So they've made a huge mistake there. And, they can't get him back now because, there's no more buyback clauses or anything. Obviously, since he left. So because he went to Inter and straight on to PSG. It was a weird transfer.
Yeah.
Essentially, he was there for a cup of coffee at Inter. And, Madrid have no more, I guess, buyback rights over him, so they've missed out on a really good player there. I look, now that they're down a goal and they've got all those problems that I mentioned with the suspensions, unless PSG have one of the all-time,
which we know they're capable of.
Yeah, they are they are serial chokers.
Yep.
Can't put it any other way.
Yep.
Unless they have, a reverse of the Barcelona remontada with Neymar.
Yeah.
Then I think they're going through. But Mbappe, that goal I think will be remembered as one of his great goals at the end of his career, one of his iconic moments. The way he split two defenders there. I mean, it was just a moment of magic, and it does go to show that the most important speed in football is over the first 5 meters.
Yeah.
I guess people get excited about players who can burst into wide open spaces, but usually deep defenses stifle the very quickest guys.
Explain the first 5 meter thing.
Yeah, so I think acceleration is, to put it in FIFA terms, acceleration is much more important than pace.
Yeah.
To be able to have an explosive start over the first 3 or 4 steps is way more important to beating defenders than being able to cover a whole lot of ground, run from one end of the field to another.
Yeah.
Because you rarely get to top speed in football.
Yeah.
It's feel weird when you see those like stats compilations of who's the fastest player in the Premier League or whatever. And on the top 10 list, there's always a couple of like, random centre backs that you think like Phil Jagielka, what? And it's because they're the only players who end up, during moments of panic, end up running at full tilt back to their own goal. You rarely reach the very peak of your pace over 100 meters. That's why Usain Bolt failed in his quest to become a professional footballer. Because he was a slow starter.
Yeah.
Well, there are other reasons too. He had a bit of a bad first touch and so forth. But that that's why his speed wasn't as effective when he tried to transfer it to the football pitch. Do you remember when he trialed for the Mariners?
No, I don't remember.
It was a real meme moment for the A-League. Didn't make the A-League. Great. But Mbappe has that explosive first step, and you saw the 2 defenders, Eder Militao and Vazquez.
Yeah. Oh, I love Militao's face when he's
But Militao couldn't get out of the way quick enough.
Yeah.
He was so afraid of giving away a penalty because he knew any reaction that he gave to that run was going to be a penalty.
Yeah.
And so they essentially had to let
him go through.
Mbappe score.
Yeah.
It was unstoppable. And that kind of spring is so difficult because defending is essentially a reactive task. You're following what the person's just done. And that's why I like to see attacking football, because I do think it is, if executed properly, the best way to win a game.
Yeah.
And Madrid paid the price for playing reactively.
Yeah. We're going to move on to other Champions League games. We're not going to talk about Man City drubbing Sporting because that's what Man City does. So there's not much to cover there. Bernardo Silva, freak. Raheem Sterling is chasing that Champions League goal scoring record for English players.
I thought it was interesting that they really put the beat down on Sporting, because there's a whole bunch of former Benfica players in the City team. And I think that added a bit of extra spice to the whole thing.
Maybe it did.
I mean, Bernardo Silva actually said after the match, he said it was a big game for me. Because he was I don't know if he ever actually played at senior level for Benfica against Sporting.
But
he was in the youth academy for like 12 years. So that rivalry doesn't really go away. It's still ingrained. He's an absolute baller.
Amazing. But we had this morning Bayern and Salzburg.
Mm-hmm.
And the other game was Inter Milan, Liverpool.
Yes.
I'll let you take this. Where do you want to begin?
I'll just cross off Bayern Salzburg quickly.
Yeah.
My thoughts.
Yeah.
Bayern on the XG and so forth should have won the game.
Yeah.
But Julian Nagelsmann set up with a 3-1-4-2, and the wing backs were wingers. I think it was like Coman and Sane or something as the wing backs, which weren't wing backs. So, and they essentially played one centre half. There was like a left back, a right back, and a centre back as the back three. It was like, this is a bit disrespectful, isn't it? Sorry, it was actually 3-2-4-1. And I was like, you can't do that in a Champions League game. Like, maybe you can do that against the bottom of the Bundesliga.
Yeah.
But I just felt it was a little bit cocky to go into a game like that playing a piss take formation like that. And Salzburg made them pay. Yeah. And their game plan is the Ralf Rangnick, RB Leipzig, Red Bull school of most goals are scored in the first 5 seconds after you receive the ball or whatever. So let's just play as fast as possible and get the ball and counter really directly. And they scored a very nice goal.
They did.
And they deserved the result. I was pleased to see Bayern made to pay for such a, disrespectful approach to their opposition. They were like, Austria, they're the other Bundesliga, they're the little brother. We're gonna batter these guys 5-0, and then we can rest all our players in the home league, and they end up drawing. So I thought that was amusing to me.
And I would love to see Bayern Munich get knocked out because I'm sick of seeing them win all the time. So
when's the last time they won the Champions League?
No, I'm just sick of them in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, even they, interestingly, have admitted that their dominance in the Bundesliga is bad for German football. They're considering introducing playoffs to decide the Bundesliga title. And Bayern are actually kind of on board with it.
I mean, fair. I mean, you must get... I mean, I don't know. Do you get sick and tired of just winning all the time?
You're going to get tired of winning, Ryan.
Yeah. Well,
we're going to win so much. You're going to be sick of it. I apologize.
Yeah, well...
for bringing out that terrible impression.
Yeah. Couldn't pretend that didn't happen.
I think we're all pretending those 4 years in America didn't happen as well.
Those years didn't happen. I didn't know Donald was here, but Donald, just let me get your opinion on Bayern Munich's dominance. Was that a model that inspired your own career?
Let's go on to Inter Liverpool 2, shall we?
Cool. Into Liverpool. I watched the highlights. Liverpool doing Liverpool things.
Yeah, I don't think they were hugely impressive in this one. Inter had a lot of territory and had a lot of the ball, especially in the first half. There were a few kind of near misses. They didn't have a shot on target, which looks bad. Yeah, they did rattle the crossbar.
They did. Yes, they did.
Hakan Çalhanoğlu nearly coming very close to opening the scoring, which would have changed the game. I thought they set up in a really smart way. Essentially, they were pretty bold in the way they tried to play out from goal kicks. I wasn't expecting that. I thought they would just pump the ball along to Dzeko and try and win the knockdowns. But instead, they play 3-5-2, and they were... This is sort of hard to explain. The back three was...
Please, dumb it down for the rest of us.
All right, so it's hard to explain without the visual, I should say. They were sort of going to a 4 in the first phase when they're playing out from the goal kick. So they were spreading wide, and Skriniar, the right centre-back, was going all the way into like a right-back position. Bastoni, the same on the left-hand side. And then Brozovic was dropping in to give them an extra option to play out against the Liverpool press.
Yeah.
And
pivot player.
Yeah, exactly. Sort of that guy who slots into the back line. And then joins the midfield when it gets further forward.
Churches League, we learned that.
Well, that's the role I used to play.
Yeah.
Split centre backs. It was a 4-3-3. It's a bit different, but
also, we went into Milan.
No, not quite.
Yeah,
it wasn't quite that sophisticated. But I thought that was interesting. Also, the way that the two wide centre backs, left and right, followed Mbappe, Mane and Salah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. All the way up the pitch, like they were really tightly marking those two players. And trying to prevent them from turning and facing goal. So they clearly had done a lot of preparation and strategy for this game, and it could have paid off. They don't have the talent level of Liverpool.
No.
But I thought it was a smart setup, and on another night, if that Çalhanoğlu shot goes in or one of those
different story,
those crosses meets Dzeko's head from Perisic, we could have had a different result.
What does this say about the golfing class then of the two leagues? Because obviously the Premier League is, widely watched, a lot of money. Serie A, obviously, this show alone, sometimes we don't really cover it. When you watch that game, what does that suggest to you as obviously the two, great representations from each league, but to the quality and the depth?
Yeah, that was the big takeaway for me, was when Liverpool went to their bench. They had just so much more quality they could turn to. Inter we're bringing on like a washed up Alexis Sanchez. They had Arturo Vidal starting the game because Barella was suspended, I think. So he had to wind back the clock. He was actually pretty good, to be fair. But, they were relying on some guys that would have been shipped off out the door and have been, in fact, in the case of Sanchez a long time ago.
Yeah.
Whereas when Liverpool went to their bench, they replaced Harvey Elliott, who I thought, good young player, I guess, but coming back from injury, he just wasn't up to the pace of the game.
Yep.
So you could say, all right, well, the kid's not playing that well. Let's bring on Naby Keita and Jordan Henderson and our new however many £1 million signing, Luis Diaz. And they swapped Jota with Firmino. And, Firmino ends up scoring the goal. A really brilliant header.
Really good header.
That's such a hard skill. Usually when you're going for a flick on it in your post, you're trying to pick out someone at the back stick, not score yourself.
Yeah.
It was an astonishing header.
And not much, and I was watching that header, I was like, how did he do that? It wasn't much action of the flick backward. He kind of just let it glide across him.
Across his hairdo.
Yeah. It was, really, really good header. Good header.
That's the, typical glance. It was almost like, do you remember when Chicharito always used to manage to head the ball backwards?
But his had more arch. Like he was this was kind of like...
Yeah.
And so you come to the Rondo for us to break down the different kind of headers.
How would you know? You never went up for one.
No, I never. I was scared.
You just
CT is real.
Stomped on the ground and tried to psych out the player.
And most of the time it worked. I'm a baller. What do you want me to do? So
he's playing centre half as well. It's just amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was so good.
So they just had so much more quality to turn to off their bench, and end up deciding the game in the last 20 minutes or so. And I just don't see Inter coming back from two.
Tough task, big task.
Yeah, it's at Anfield. It's not going to happen. So I think that tie is unfortunately over. But I thought Inter were close to bridging the gap through the smart way they were coached.
Yeah.
So I don't think they did anything wrong. I don't think they really could have done much more other than a little bit of better execution in the final third. And, maybe they could ask their Chinese owners for a bit more money so they could sign someone like Luis Diaz to come off the bench.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough to cope with that kind of disparity between the two benches, essentially, especially in a game that's so high intensity now that substitutions become so important.
Yeah.
To the extent that I don't know if you saw this piece, but it was breaking down in the Premier League, Southampton, how in nearly every game that they're in it with a chance, a player goes down with an injury between the 60th and 70th minutes so that all of their players can go to the sideline and get Gatorade and
there you go.
Gels and stuff, the high glucose gels and things like that to see them through the rest of the match. I mean, it's kind of a conspiracy theory, but the data was pretty compelling, and that shows you the physical toll that's put on players now.
You talked about the the difference in depth and quality was apparent in that game. How can Serie A kind of bridge that gap as a whole?
It's tough, Premier League is such a juggernaut in terms of TV numbers and finances and so forth. I think probably better English language coverage of the league would help. And they've lent into the social media a little bit, like Roma leading the way, with their kind of meme accounts and things. I think it does move the needle a little bit in terms of how many fans are willing to buy a shirt or.
Well, I was at Ultra Football the other day, and AS Roma released like a Chinese New Year drop of like training kids with like Lunar New Year designs and stuff like that. Tapping into different aspects of culture now, which is for me was interesting because I never thought that a club like AS Roma would do that.
Yeah, and Inter had the Year of the Tiger or whatever it is. Kit that they put together.
Yeah, and they did that Montclair collaboration, and they're doing stuff, So
and Napoli brings out a different Diego Maradona memorial
Napoli's
jersey.
Like 11 kits, don't they? They have like a Halloween edition.
Yeah, so they're trying to move the needle in those like small ways. But I think fundamentally, you just need the kind of media apparatus around the league, not just in the Italian-speaking world, but in the English-speaking world, to give it traction, and that's hard. You need the sort of, and it's a spectrum, right, from like quality, long-read tactical breakdowns on The Athletic to kind of clickbait content on sort of Sport Bible. It's a whole spectrum of getting people invested with their attention and then their money. And that's a battle for eyeballs that all of the leagues are facing. I mean, it's pretty slim pickings in the A-League at the moment when you look at the TV ratings. So I don't think anyone's quite solved that problem. And beyond getting external investment.
If any A-League club, right?
Oh, God.
just about wants to do a Lunar New Year drop, I'm your man. I'm your guy. Just hit me up.
It's a bit late now, isn't it?
Yeah, next year. It's called forward thinking.
Okay.
Okay? This guy doesn't get it. He wants your money now. I'm talking.
Don't go with Victory. Their kits are horrendous. God, like
I actually like Western United.
They've got nice merch.
They've got nice merch.
It's Kappa.
And no cap.
Hey, you were gonna buy an Adelaide United jersey.
I was gonna and so then here's the thing. So like, sorry to turn my back to all of you. I'm trying to be inclusive of the conversation here, but then now I need to talk to him real quick. If it's fire, you have to buy it.
Right.
If it's nice, right? And I think it's good for the culture. Like, look at like the kit collectors that I met when I was in Brisbane. Some of them have clubs they support, but they still appreciated design and what like certain kits mean. And I think something like AS Roma's Chinese New Year drop, or A-League having like really nicely designed kits, I think is a step forward, because you have to build a story around the product, and you have to do that. I think in Asia, the J League does that really well. K Leagues is pretty good too, and I think we can look abroad and see what people are doing in terms of building a bigger narrative around the leagues. But that's just my own little
and I think also with this stuff, it's kind of marginal gains until you get to the TV rights packages, which is the main source of income from outside of your match day revenue and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure the way that they're like packaging TV rights, the quality of the coverage. Like the Premier League looks different. Like when you switch it on, the colours are really vivid. The camera angles are amazing.
It's delightful.
They've got more camera angles than I think the Serie A broadcasts have. The broadcasting positions are like closer to the action.
It's Christmas.
Like Serie A, a lot of the time, you switch it on and it looks like football from a slightly different era, because it's very like top down in a lot of the stadiums.
You know what it's like? It's like when you play FIFA, right? And then your friend goes, I prefer to play this camera angle. And then they go into the settings and they change it. And that angle is shit house.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
It seems like less action-packed because you're like a little bit more zoomed out. And pitch is a little bit hazy because everyone's letting off flares and random firecrackers in the stands and stuff, which I like.
I don't mind that.
But yeah, it doesn't seem quite as professionally packaged and compelling as the way the Premier League has been able to market itself and broadcast itself. It's so clean and slick. And I think that does impact people's perceptions of the quality of play, which I don't think there's a huge disparity between the two, only really at the very top end.
Well, you'll be proud, because since we started doing the show together, I've actually been keeping up with the Serie A a little bit.
Oh, nice.
Just been watching highlights on YouTube and stuff like that just to be across it. And you're right, the quality is better. But I think the way that it's produced and then shown to the rest of the world matters, because if that's the first touch point, people are going to make their judgments based on that.
Yeah. And also, you also have to look at who's holding the rights as well. And you look at the way, for example, here in Australia, the way Optus are cutting their highlights and the way they're doing their social media to sell the product, I think is super compelling. And it gets attention. Sometimes it's a bit lowbrow, kind of clickbait, and they're always going Liverpool, Manchester United, Ronaldo all the time. But it works for them, clearly.
It's all part of a bigger strategy.
Yeah, and the way that Serie A is marketed in Australia is complete afterthought. No one even bought the rights to the league and secured it until I think a day or two before the season started this year. And it ended up being beIN Sport again. And like, who subscribes to beIN Sport? You know, it's kind of a off-Broadway production a little bit. You know, some of them are on KO and Foxtel channels, but only like the certain main channels, so you can't see all the games. It just creates a buffer between the audience and what they might want to see. And I don't think they're doing enough outside of the actually showing the games to compel people to subscribe. So I think Serie A maybe needs to look a little bit more, I guess, interrogatively at who holds the rights in these big English-speaking markets, or not even English-speaking, throughout the world, and whether they're doing a good enough job of then marketing Serie A to those people. Because if you get more people wanting to watch it, there will be more people who wants to buy the rights, and then you'll get more money from the TV sales. So it's tough, and you need a global strategy to be able to compete with the Premier League. But that's what the Premier League have been doing all these years, and other leagues need to catch up.
So if the Serie A is watching, Josh is your guy to lead this global dominance.
The only way the Serie A would be watching is if we put like some unauthorized footage in this video and we get a DCMA claim.
Yeah.